Cue the dramatic entrance. Credit cards, a blessing and a curse, a double-edged sword. Credit card is the definition of the quote, with great power comes great responsibility.
Okay, that sounds lovely. Let me just pull out my black card. Should be inside here somewhere. American Express, you know. You take this. Hey there guys, welcome to The Break. My name is Patricia Bright. We are over here giving you the tools and resources to learn, grow, navigate life like a boss and make money moves in the process. Did you guys get my joke? Like, did you get it? Were you here for it? Like, boom, chum, like, hey. No. Today I wanted to talk about using a credit card like the rich. Scrap that. Let's use a credit card like the smart, because there are rich people who are broke, drowning in debt, and aren't very happy. We don't want to be those kind of people. I'm not a financial advisor though. This is just my opinion and for entertainment purposes.
That part right there is always important to know. Always remember, right? Net worth is more important than your income. You can be making $100,000 a year, but have over $50,000 in debt. So you're really only worth $50,000 unless you include some other assets, right? Anybody you see on Instagram, YouTube, whatever platform, right? They might be making X amount of dollars, right? Let's say on YouTube, people will show you their earnings, right? How much they made in a month. Let's say they make $10,000, right? At least 40% of that, given their tax bracket, is probably going towards taxes. So let's say they're making $6,000 after taxes, or $7,000 after taxes, plus business expenses. And then they have other business expenses, right? So let's say that $6,000 is maybe now $5,000. So realistically, they're making maybe $5,000. So what you see is not always what's really there.
Don't need television. Not as long as we have our imagination.
Right? Especially in the industry of music. An artist may be making $1 million off of their music. But what is their take home after everybody else is paid and after all taxes? That's what you should be keeping in mind of.
There are some things that I've learned and heard about when it comes to using a credit card and using it properly. I've seen so many horror stories of people getting credit cards and that debt following them for a really long time. If you're someone who is wild about their spending and is not interested in using credit or credit cards smartly, just don't watch this video. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a girl out here loving making money and sharing that information with you and providing some info. Credit cards can be used, one, to your advantage, or two, a massive disadvantage that will leave you hyperventilating for years to come. No, we've got to use credit wisely if we are to use it. And from my own personal perspective, for a really long time, because I was so scared of credit cards, I've seen the detrimental effect that they had on people. I just didn't have any. So the first point I would say that you can use credit to actually build a credit score. If you do not have a credit score right now, yes, you can actually get a credit card and use that to build your credit reputation. Now you have to be really careful in the way in which you do this. Using a credit card is a great way to show your behavior when it comes to money and when it comes to lending, which the credit agencies use to basically give you a scoring. And if you are good at using your credit card, then you're able to increase your credit score. One, keeping your credit utilization low. So let's assume that you get a credit card that has
There's two major types of credit cards that you can use. Either a secured credit card or an unsecured credit card. The unsecured credit card usually has that 19.99% interest or some absorbently high interest rate. My perspective on getting a credit card has always been this, right? If you want to get a credit card, ideally start with a secured credit card, which essentially is you put money in upfront and then each month or bi-monthly you are able to pay that money back installmentally, right? Essentially you're already putting the creditor is guaranteed to have your money, right? And you're using it to essentially just build your credit. As a result, you don't have the fear of potentially missing a payment and getting interest. But before you even get into all that, my thing has always been to build the habit of saving before you start using a credit card. I feel like most people use a credit card before they've actually built a substantial emergency fund. I usually say have an emergency fund of at least 2 to 3 months first. That means the emergency fund covers your rent, utilities, transportation fees for 2 to 3 months. That means if you had no other income coming in, you have that amount of money in your bank account before you start using a credit card. The determination, the willpower, the stinginess, you could say, financial stinginess that it takes to build an emergency fund of 2 to 3 months worth, let's say about, to be more specific, that means your emergency fund will be anywhere from $2,000 to maybe even $5,000 that you have saved up before you start using your credit card. By the time you have that amount of money saved up in your savings accounts, and then you begin using a credit card, you will without doubt, definitely use it more responsibly, because you're always saying, okay, let me pay myself first, and then the money that I just got paid on payday, let me work with the rest and use my credit card responsibly. And then even with a credit card utilization, you don't want to use more than 30% of your credit card limit, just so that you always have enough available to pay the balance in full each month before the 30-day cycle is over, right?
$1,000 on it. Don't spend the whole £5,000. Get a £5,000 credit card and only use 1,000 and then pay it back in full or pay it back very consistently. She's good. She doesn't spend everything all the time and she always pays it back. You know what we could do? Lend her more money, give her a mortgage. So out of that £5,000, you're only using 20%. That's a really good ratio when it comes to credit utilization. So another way that you can use credit cards, and in particular, it is the 0% credit cards that you can have available. Often if you receive a 0% credit card, it's an introductory offer. It might be for the first 12 months. It might be for the next 6 months. During that period of time where there is zero interest, you could use it to pay off some other debts or other costs that you have. Now, again, this is something that you have to use with caution. Note that 0% interest rates are introductory, and what happens if it goes to a higher interest rate? Are you going to be able to afford that, and will you have been able to pay that debt off before it hits that higher interest rate percentage? If you can't, then there is no point in doing that. But if you know you've got the money, you know you don't want to be paying that interest, then switch it over and make those payments consistently. You don't have to stay loyal to one particular credit card, and there is also the option to do a balance transfer to another credit card. This is very risky. If you have loads of different cards, if you're really confused about your credit, just it could be a great way if you wanted to consolidate some of your credit debts, especially if you could do a balance transfer onto a 0% interest rate card. But you would have to check if you are eligible and see what card options are out there. Please use with caution. And as you guys know, like, I'm a scaredy cat, but I know that there are some people who are
So balance transfer cards, when you consolidate all your payments onto one card and onto one due date, it can give you a false sense of security. Thinking that, okay, you have 6 months. Usually it's about 6 to 18 months. Usually that they give you the introductory 0% balance or introductory 0% interest. They'll give you about 6 months or so to use that credit card, or ideally transfer all your payments to that credit card and pay that debt balance in full. So let's say you have 1,000 on MasterCard, 1,000 on Visa, and 2,000 on Discover, right? So 2,000 plus 4,000. So all of your payments will go to the full 4,000 will go to one payment, and it'll be 0% interest. Ideally, more than likely, if you're doing this, you have a lot of debt. So obviously, you don't want to keep using that credit card, right? You want to stick to using your debit card, pay things out of your own pocket, and save up to essentially pay it off. Honestly, one of the things that people don't realize they have an option to is actually credit card debt settlements. Essentially, it's a process where you settle with your creditor for a portion of the original amount that you have owed. Let's say you lost your income, maybe you had some health issues, and maybe you ended up overusing your credit, or the minimum balance you're paying on your credit card is no longer making a substantial dent into your debt. What you can do, instead of continuing to pay the minimum balance, is you can save the money in a separate bank account, right? And build up a lump sum that you can offer to your bank as a settlement offer. I go into a full 30-minute breakdown of everything about credit card debt settlements in the video up here in the cards, the description, and pinned comment is the truth, the untold truth about credit card debt settlements. So if you're doing the 0% balance transfer, more than likely you have a substantial amount of credit card debt that you can't handle at the moment.
Rewards from using credit cards like the rich / like the smart. I like this one. You can use a credit card to purchase a holiday. Woo! Swipe it up. We're going on a yacht. Swipe it up. We're going on a yacht. No, that is not what you're going to do. If you were going to do a little trip locally to Spain, do that. No, I'm not saying put it on a credit card and get a yacht in Saint-Tropez. That is not what you're going to do. But using a credit card to buy a holiday is a great option. If number one, you are already going to go on a holiday, you already have the money in your bank account, you're actually covered under the Consumer Credit Act if anything goes wrong. So when there are airlines who don't want to give you refunds, your credit card company can do. If something happens to the hotel, your credit card company can sort you out. Sometimes if you do purchase a holiday with a credit card, there may be a few different surcharges. However, sometimes the benefits of the security that a credit card can protect you may outweigh some of these surcharges. Now, who does not like a free gift? We all like a free gift. A lot of credit cards and a lot of banks offer cashback rewards. So if you're paying bills that you already had to pay for meals, groceries, movie tickets, so every time you use that spending, you're able to basically build your points within the system, and then you're able to redeem those points that you gather from a catalog.
In my opinion, I found it easier to keep track of how much money I'm spending on a credit card when I'm putting fixed payments on that credit card, right? So for example, Netflix is a fixed payment each month, or any other subscription service that you use on a monthly basis. Put that, your phone bill, put that on your credit card. But like, I feel like things that are a bit harder to keep track of, or a bit harder to fix expenses, I usually just use my debit card for that. Just because I know that I'm not going to overspend with a credit card. With a credit card, it's so easy to overspend. It's so easy to just tap and go. One thing that has helped me substantially in managing my finances is just getting into the habit of checking your bank account every single day. Just have a look at it. Look at your numbers. Look at your current balance in terms of your checking account, savings accounts, and then that credit card balance. The more often you check it on a daily basis, the less likely you are to overspend. The periods in my life where I did not check my bank account for even 3, 4, 5 days, even a week, are the times where I spent the most money.
Yep, it's right on the screen right there. Wow. Wow, bro. That's crazy.
Check it every single day, once in the morning or either once in the evening, or just periodically check it every day, and you will realize, okay, I'm spending this amount on my credit card right now. Do I actually have enough money to make this purchase? Stuff like that. And even purchases, right? Always ask yourself, how much of my life would it take to make this money back? If something costs $200 and you make, let's say, $20 per hour, how many hours of your life would it take you to make that money back? And is it worth, 10 hours of your life, or whatever hours of your life, right? Ask yourself that, and that will filter whether or not this thing is really important to you, or if it's just going to collect space.
Of beautiful gifts. This might sound counterintuitive, but you can use a credit card as a complement to your budget. So, okay, hear me out. Let's assume you have your written budget. Download My Budget R, we about that live, we're consistent. You have an idea of what products that you want to buy. You know what you are meant to be spending on. You know what your limits are. You know where it needs to go. You're allocated, you're organized. You can use a credit card to pay for those things. And then you can also reap the rewards from that. You're not using the credit card because you can't afford your budget. You're using it on the things that you already knew that you were going to be committed to. And then you can basically pay off that amount in full and also receive the rewards by doing that. I'm assuming if you're someone who's got My Budget R, and if you're someone who has a written and clear budget, that you're organized, that you're on top of things. A credit card is a great option if you are someone who's like, you know what, I don't mind earning a few points, I don't mind getting a few air miles, I don't mind receiving a few cashback rewards here and there. I'm strict.
Something I also want to add is that credit isn't the only thing that can determine or impacts your credit score. Also, if you want to be just like me and only put fixed payments on your credit card, you can just rely on the apartment that you're paying, because your ability to pay your apartment on time and how consistent you are, like not being late, your diligence in being on time with your apartment rents can also affect your credit score. And likewise, a positive history of apartment or rent payment can also impact your credit score. So it's not just a credit card. If you have an apartment, you rent, you're always paying rent on time, that can also impact positively your credit score. So I'm just saying.
I'm organized. I automate my payments. You can automate your payment and pay your credit card and stick to your budget. You can use a credit card, specifically a 0% interest credit card, to pay off one-off lump sums that you might not be able to afford right now. Again, this is really, really risky territory. You need to be sure that you're able to afford it in the long run. But say you wanted to buy a washing machine, or say actually you wanted to buy a season ticket for traveling, or you wanted to pay off your car insurance right now for a year in advance. Yes, you can do that on a credit card to reduce the amount you're paying for it in the long run. It's really valuable, for instance, to buy a season ticket or a 1-year travel card or a 1-year bus ticket over a weekly one. Again, if you're ever buying anything on a credit card, you need to make sure that you can afford it. And you definitely don't want to use a credit card to pay off another credit card, to pay off another credit card, to pay off another credit card. It's all going to get very painful. And a lot of people say that the way that their credit card debts, catch up on them is because there are these little costs here and there and they didn't keep an eye on it. However, if I want to be prudent, I would share that if you already have an emergency fund in order, if you've already got savings in place, then if big ticket items come up, you should be able to have the money aside to pay for that. And if
You see foreshadowing. See foreshadowing. I didn't watch the video yet. This is a off the dome, off the top reaction.
Super hot fire. I spit that.
This is another cosign. So what I'm saying is facts. What I'm saying is facts and not fiction. Ain't no cap in my speech. Come on now.
you should. Oh, another point about travel is actually you can use your credit card for purchases that you make abroad. You'll find that credit cards often don't have large transaction fees or hidden commissions when it comes to currency exchange. If you're going away, it's definitely a better and also safer option to use your credit card for the purchases that you're making. And then when you come back, make sure you pay it off in full. Make sure you have the money in your account. Okay, so those are some tips on how to use a credit card smart. I really want to exercise caution with this video because I never want to encourage anyone to get into debt. I think it's very risky. I don't like debt personally, but I understand that there are ways that you can use a credit card to add more value to yourself, but don't do it in excess. The ways that I've explained are a great example. So I really feel like I should end this with a few what not to do's just so you can just exercise caution, because I don't want to hear any stories that are bad, okay? I don't want to hear it. And I know that there are people who are in situations or are overwhelmed with debt. I'll put some links in the description bar below where you can, reach out to people who can help you when it comes to that, because I know being in debt can be a very painful and scary situation. Number one, please don't use credit cards to withdraw cash. It's not needed. They have huge fees associated with it, and they just want to rack it up. Number two, you need to understand that the companies and the credit card companies, they don't want you to pay off the credit card because they love the interest that they're making you pay. They're making money every time you are late, every time you are delayed. Recognize that credit card companies are not your friends and they want to make money off the back of you. So always exercise caution.
Usually the balance on your credit card owed is only about 2 to 3%. If you have a $5,000 credit card, let's say you maxed it out, $5,000, and you have $5,000 owed on your credit card, they'll say the minimum payment required to be current is only about 2 to 3%. So usually if it's $5,000, they'll only require you to pay $150 or so, right? Just so that you can pay the money towards the principal, but also pay the money towards the interest, which goes to them, right? So always the minimum payment, just ignore that shit. Just ignore that shit and pay as much as you can each month. Ideally pay it off in full before the 30-day period, right? And obviously, again, like I always say, have an emergency fund of at least $2,000 to maybe even $5,000 that you have saved up before you even start using a credit card substantial. That means if you stop having money coming in, you have a buffer zone about 2 to 3 months where you can tap into instead of tapping into a credit card. Because another thing that people what tends to happen is that, let's say you don't have an emergency fund. What is going to sustain you? What are you going to be able to use to hold you over until your next job or your next income? People might tap into the credit card because that's available credit. when you should be using your emergency fund as available credit. You know what I'm saying?
Debt to borrow yourself out of more debt, to borrow yourself out of more debt. Yes, I did make mention of 0% interest rate cards. Now, these aren't always available to everyone. You need to make sure that they are available to you, but don't use them as a way of getting out of another debt that you can't even afford anyway, because in reality, that 0% interest rate is not going to be available forever. And what are you going to do when that interest rate goes up? If you still can't afford it, don't get more credit. Work out how to come up with a payment and a management plan. If you can, just pay it off in full. And the way to do this is to just automate the payment. Don't think about it. Just pay it off in full. Make sure you have a feed from your standard bank account into your credit card account. Pay it all off. If you can't pay it off, please pay more than the minimum. Do not be lulled into a false sense of security that, oh my gosh, my minimum repayment is only this. This is how they get you. Pay double the minimum, pay more than the minimum. The interest that you are paying on that card is going to keep going up and up and up, and it gets really expensive. In my opinion, if you're gonna use a credit card and you wanna use it wise, make sure you have that amount coming in your bank account, and in my really cautious and prudent opinion, make sure you have that amount twice over.
Oh, and just to reiterate the process, right? If you are already deep or heavy in credit card debt, you do have the option of a credit card debt settlement process, or debt settlement option that you can do it yourself. Essentially, what happens is you start making the minimum payment towards your credit card. I know it can be kind of scary, but instead of making the minimum payment or maybe a couple additional extra $100 above it, let's say the minimum payment is $150. And you were putting $350 towards the $5,000 credit card debt because that's all you could afford. So instead of paying $350, you start saving that money. You put it in a separate bank account that you will ultimately save up in over the course of 4 to 5 months to ultimately give them a settlement offer. If you need a more in-depth process of how this works, check out the video right here or right here as well. It goes into so much detail, a full 30-minute breakdown. All right, God bless, much love, peace, and joy. Namaste. Always remember, if it doesn't feed you, don't water it. And too much of any good thing is good for nothing. Flip the script. I'm out. Deuces.
You don't get to eat if you don't put in work. Then nobody don't come up to me. Cause where I'm from, you don't get nothing free. And I don't want no leeches on my team.